that your likability is about the same as Kim Jong-un, not you in particular, but Congress overall. But I have to ask you the obvious question. How do we know with this kind of legislation that it's not going to be 1986 all over again? And that is amnesty granted in exchange for promises broken down the road.
Well, I think the critical difference is we appropriate the money up front. That means we authorize and spend the money on the wall, on the border security measures, before any type of relief to these dreamers goes into effect. That, to me, is the critical difference from 1986 to today. You get the money up front, and you solve the problem as that money is deployed at the border.
But the way I read the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the future Congresses can take that money away and not necessarily appropriate it. It is not all front-loaded.
But it would require 60 votes in the Senate, just like what we saw under the Affordable Care Act, where they took a lot of the money and advance appropriated. We weren't able to claw into those pots because we just couldn't get there legislatively. This would protect that money, in my humble opinion, to make sure that the priority of securing our border is done first. At the same time, we are also setting in motion the relief for these dreamers.
All right. So the meeting with the president last night, there was a meeting today. There's all kinds of meetings going on. The president's message is pretty clear. He's got some pillars. 3 out of the 4 are pretty solid. The 4th is amnesty. He wanted to grant to approximately 1.8 million people in this country who are in here illegally. Are those 4 pillars, in your opinion, going to be met by any legislation that's going to come out this week?
I do believe that the proposals, both proposals on the floor, address the 4 pillars to some degree. And I think at the end of the day, we want a piece of legislation that not only solves the problem coming out of the House, but actually making its way to the president's desk and get signed into law. And that's what this position in the House will do.
Congress votes to change this law, and I'm not being facetious here. I'm making a point. Shouldn't Congress then change the law for bank robbers who are arrested, or DUI, people who have a DUI arrest? That's a misdemeanor as well, just like crossing our border. Why it's a misdemeanor, I don't know. It should be a felony, but be that as it may, you have a misdemeanor DUI, you're put in jail. Should we be reuniting children to these people who are put in jail because of a DUI?
I think that hypothetical is better appropriately set when you say bank robber who brings his kid in order to rob the bank. You hold the bank robber accountable, but that kid who's innocently there, maybe we have a compassionate, caring
right, but we separate the two.
Hold that kid accountable for the
we don't let the bank robber have the kid in jail.
That's what we're doing.
No, but what?
Yeah, but that's what we're doing with this situation in regards to fixing this problem for that innocent kid.
I don't quite understand that. I think we're accommodating the criminals. You would agree that an illegal immigrant necessarily, by definition, is a criminal, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they need to be held accountable. And there are penalties that they could be imposed upon them. They could have that, obviously, consequence of their unlawful action. But when we're talking about the kids, I am sensitive, and I hear that voice of that child.
Your district, District 23 in New York, went for President Trump in 2016, if I remember correctly. We have a poll out right now that Trump supporters are overwhelmingly against the president signing a piece of legislation that grants amnesty. You can call it something else. I'm going to call it amnesty in exchange for border security. How do you reconcile that?
Well, that's why this is an amnesty, and I think the president was very clear when he came up and talked with us yesterday and said he'd be willing to support that because he doesn't see this as amnesty just like we don't. At the end of the day, we can play the game of amnesty, is it or is it not? Fundamentally, that's not what this is about, in my opinion. And when people hear that combination, that's where, I see a common sense compromise being brought together. Fix the border, make sure it's done up front, and then you accommodate these children that are brought here innocently.
Absolutely a shame that we can't address these issues individually, because I pointed out at the onset here, they are apples and oranges, and it's a shame, an absolute shame that they have to be linked. Congressman Reed, thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.